It's exciting. The world is changing. The way people are digesting content is changing. We live in a world now where traditional broadcasting methods are yesterday's news. People aren't watching conventional TV on a TV anymore. And, the demand for streaming, the demand for subscription TV is everything's changing in front of us. And every market's different. You look at the UK market, we have a great boxing market there now, and also a pay-per-view market, but with a very different price point to that of the US. We're holding pay-per-view events at $25. Okay, over here, you're talking like $60, $70, $100 for a pay-per-view night. And in my opinion, that's meaning that the big fights are not easily accessible for the paying public and for the boxing fans. So what we're trying to do here is something completely different. The fun thing about what we're trying to do as well is we're building from the ground up. So we have the opportunity to build a platform, a home of boxing, for fight fans, essentially by fight fans, which is us. And I've been watching boxing since I was 7 years old. I've been going to live shows since I was 8 years old. I love boxing. It's everything to me. So we're not going to allow this to fail. We want to make sure that all the things that we don't like about boxing, we can try and change at DAZN. Small things as well. I'm talking about why go on air at 10 or 11 o'clock with 1 or 2 fights? Why not go on air at 6 o'clock and show the entire night of boxing? Give great value, acquiring content. Not only have we got the 16 shows from the US, we've got the 16 shows from the UK that we're promoting as well. You've now got the World Boxing Super Series. So all of a sudden, now you're talking about 16 shows, 16 shows, 15 shows. You're up to significant fight nights. Of course, couple that with the Bellator announcements and other announcements to come. I think we've got a great chance here. And you're always going to get your critics. You're always going to be fighting the system. And that's something that's been so enjoyable over the last probably month since we were last in New York, about signing fighters, making fights. You're up against the system. Those who say they don't care, those that want to talk down about a streaming platform and all this are the same guys that are scrambling frantically to try and stop your progression. But that's exciting to me. That's what makes me tick. So we've made some great progress. We've signed about 7 or 8 fighters so far. I think we'll be up to close to double figures by the time we have our first press conference to announce our first show, which will be July 17. And I can't wait. I think this is the future of not just boxing, but the way people digest content and the way people watch TV. When I talk about the 12 standard shows and the 4, I call it monsters. There is a more technical word for that within our business. But the 4 shows are really those pay-per-view size shows where you're traditionally spending your $100 to watch one night of boxing on TV. Also, by the way, I feel that when there's a pay-per-view show in America, the depth of the card is just not enough. If you're going to be spending that kind of money, you should have championship fights from 6 p.m. till midnight. And you should sit round your TV with your friends, having a barbecue, whatever you're doing, pizzas, beers, and you should have a full night's entertainment. Not a little bit of rubbish and then a main event. So what we're looking to do, like I said, is to have championship boxing, not just on the 4 big ones, but every show. So you have your 12 sort of standard big cards. So they're your typical HBO, Showtime, Saturday night World Championship fights, but in my opinion, ours will be much deeper. Then you have your 4 what will replicate pay-per-view fights. So rather than spending your $70 or your $100 for one night, they're built within your monthly subscription on DAZN. And that's what we're trying to change. So within a monthly subscription, you might get a pay-per-view style night within our 4. You might get 1 or 2 of our US shows, a UK show, and a World Boxing Super Series show, all of a sudden for a tenth of the price of a pay-per-view. So that's really the model on those, is to throw in those big nights and dates that we will focus on in advance. So our first one of those will be in November. And the plan is to put on a colossal night of boxing in November, and also big nights around that, and all kinds of interesting conversations going on right now. Obviously we just finished the Joshua Wilder stuff. Joshua is going to fight Povetkin next. We'll announce that soon. That's something that DAZN are looking to acquire as well. And that would be a major coup to bring the biggest star in world boxing to the platform. Well, I think we have to bring something different. And I think you look at our UK shows, you look at the style, the energy, the brand, the look, the feel, all of this stuff. We have to be different, but also understand what works and what doesn't work. So when I talk about building from the ground up, I'm talking about our presentation team. I'm talking about our commentary team. That's got to be what the fight fans want. We want the credible guys. We want the knowledgeable guys. What do we do in terms of the shows? We bring a new live experience to the shows, interaction with the fans, more music, a different kind of vibe, a different kind of look. We need to bring that audience down a little bit in terms of the age numbers, make it trendy and sexy again as well. We need to get great fights. That's the key, because boxing is a great sport. Boxing is a great product. And if you get the fights, you're going to make sure that the fans enjoy the shows. So we need the big names, of course we do, but we also need to build these cards from 6 o'clock through to midnight, not 10 till midnight, and see how we get on. So we need to do a lot of things that are different to the way that traditional promoters and broadcasters are working. Like we have a situation where we might deal with a broadcaster in the States and we'll say, so-and-so is walking out, we've got this marching band coming in and these fireworks and the broadcaster will say, well, no, we haven't got time for that. Let's just get him out. That's not for us. This is a show. When you spend your dollar and you're in that arena, you have to leave saying that was worth every cent. And that's not just about the fights. That's about the fans' experience. That's about the walk-ons, the music, the anthems, the interaction, all of that kind of stuff. So we've conquered the UK. We have a great brand. We have a great production. We have a great in-arena experience. And we have to bring that to the US. We have to understand the market as well. I saw some comments from Richard Schaefer. Oh, he doesn't know anything about the US audience. We're people. You're the same as me. You just live in a different country. You love live sport. You love a great night out. You love music. You like dressing up. You like having a great time. That's what we have to deliver. Sometimes when I go to a boxing show, I'll sit around and there might be a fan sort of watching the fight. Might have a 3-litre Coke and maybe some popcorn. And I look at it, I think, what is that? Like, that is everything we have to work against with what is happening right now. You go to a UFC show, perhaps, and you might see a guy with his girlfriend, dressed up, drinking champagne, on their feet, full of energy, excited by the build-up, excited by the hype. That's what we want to create. And it's not just about having a drink or getting dressed up, but it's the whole experience. It's about working on the build-up to fights, to create hype, to create narratives, to create stories around shows, so that when you get in the arena, how many people sit in those arenas now in the US and don't even know who's fighting? Or they don't know where the fighters come from, or what's their story, or the fact that this guy, I always look at Daniel Jacobs as an example. This is one of the greatest stories in boxing. This is one of the smartest guys in boxing, one of the best fighters in boxing. We pick him up at the back end of his career. No one knows the story of Daniel Jacobs. This is an incredible story. We have to try and tell it, but that gets built normally from the ground up, so that when fighters become a world champion, they're a huge star already, And that's what we have to do as well with DAZN and with Sporting News and with all our platforms, to sell the profiles of these fighters. People say, why would you sign with Hearn? The reason that you sign with Hearn and MATCHROOM is, 1, we're excellent promoters. 2, we know how to guide the career of a fighter. 3, we have a fantastic relationship with a great new platform in DAZN that are going to be paying fighters a lot of money. But most importantly, we have a team of people building the profile. We need to build these fighters in their hometowns. Not enough fighters are being recognised or built in their hometowns. That's the basics of talent marketing. You build from the ground outwards. Now, if there's a guy from, Maryland in Washington, and you're fighting him in Vegas, it's like, why? You should be boxing in Maryland. Surely you're going to get a great atmosphere there. Look at when Terence Crawford boxes in Omaha, when Wilder boxes in Alabama. They care. There's passion. These people are taking their shirts off. They're screaming for their own man. That's what we want. We don't want these guys. We want these guys. Come on, passion for sport. That's what it's all about. And obviously, you can never be as passionate more so than one of your own. So I feel like this whole tour of America that we'll be doing with DAZN, we need to explore these places. Chicago, Washington, Miami, Minnesota, areas that haven't been exposed to boxing, cities and towns that you can go to and they go, wow, you're bringing a big boxing show here? Thank you. I mean, I think ESPN are going to New Orleans recently. Great. You look at the demographic, or the breakdown, of the geographic breakdown of viewership for boxing. New Orleans is right up there. So now you go to a city that loves boxing, that's got one now in Regis Progress. They're going to embrace their own. Fantastic. So let's, New York's great, LA's great, Vegas is great, but let's bring boxing to the roots in America as well, and make sure that when we're on air, we're creating that experience and that noise that the viewer can look at the screen or the laptop or the phone and think, wow, I want to be there. And that's what's been lacking, in my opinion, for US boxing. So you're going to get between 8 and 10 announcements on July the 17th of new fighters. You'll get our first show announced as well. Those guys that you mentioned, Charlos, Errol Spence, Mikey Garcias, for example, those guys we're in conversations with. A lot of those guys. So this is going to be a period where over the next 3 or 4 months, you're going to see the big names signing with DAZN. You're already going to see world champions and big names signing with DAZN in the next couple of weeks for our announcement. So I'm very happy with the signings that we've made. Great undefeated fighters, world champions, and also something that makes me tick is the new kids on the block. The kids coming out, the US national teams, Golden Gloves champions. We're going to be building those over the next couple of years as well, giving them 7, 8 fights a year and exposing them to the public and making the public follow their story from the debut. This is how you turn people into stars. You don't get to a stage where they're 20-0 and start working on them and then they win a world title and they're huge. You have to build from the base, and that's what we will be doing with probably half a dozen fighters turning pro as well. So coming up, like I said, you're going to see those guys. You're going to see guys that are 12, 15, 20-0 on the verge of challenging for world titles. You're going to see world champions announced as well, and our first show, which will be coming soon.